Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Family Man, a 3-part graphic novel published in 1995 by Paradox Mystery, which was a sub-imprint of Paradox Press, which was an imprint at DC Comics. Paradox was trying to expand the readership of comics, trying to reach a more mainstream audience with different formats, different genres. Their Paradox Mystery line, things that came out of that were like Road to Perdition, A History of Violence, both which were adapted into pretty successful movies. So they had some success. They published Howard Cruz's Stuck Rubber Baby, which had definitely some crossover success with the mainstream book market. They also did those big books, like the Big Book of Weirdos, the Big Book of Urban Legends. And those were had some crossover too. But unfortunately, Family Man didn't. I don't think this did very well, which is a shame because this is an outstanding story. It's really good stuff. And it's written by Jerome Charyn, the famous novelist. Did a lot of mysteries and other type books as well. And wrote a bunch of great graphic novels. In fact, some of his graphic novels, like The Magician's Wife, that won like the Grand Prix at Angoulême. So he's a very well-regarded novelist and graphic novel writer. The artist by Joe Staton, long-term Marvel DC guy, and kind of a weird pairing. I would love to see the editors meeting where they decided on getting Joe Staton, because Joe Staton was kind of a, DC, not very good, kind of hacky superhero guy. Known for drawing Green Lantern Corps and things like that. But man, I'll show you soon. He definitely upped his game for this. I think you're going to be quite amazed, as I was, to see how good Joe Staton is at this compared to his normal stuff. Here's the first volume. We got the covers are all designed by Joe Staton, but then heavily painted over by Linda Medley. Linda Medley of Castle Waiting fame, the great cartoonist. Really nice, attractive covers. Just very simple designs, but rendered very nicely. I want to just show you I just love this format. These like cute little graphic novels. See, it's about how big they are. Little digest size. I wish that they had like about, 7 or 8 of these little 3-part graphic novels back in the 90s. Book 1, To Protect and Serve. So look at this right off the bat. We see Joe Staton just put lots of sweat equity into this, like shading and tinting. Just a lot of detail compared to what he normally draws. And also Joe Staton kind of has a problem. He has a very cartoony style. This is definitely Joe Staton's style. It's unmistakably Joe Staton. And yet, his superhero work, maybe he was cranking it out. I don't know, every few panels there'd be a face that was a little off. Like, that guy doesn't look like he did 3 panels ago. What happened? But he's very consistent here. Very tight in his cartoony style. And very detailed. It's almost as if, this is Joe Staton if he worked 10 times as hard, which maybe he did. And maybe that's why the results are so good. New York, 1 hour into the future. And we see our protagonist, Alonzo, up on the roof. His brother, Charlie, who's a Monsignor for the police department, is coming up to meet him on the roof. He's got his gun drawn, but it's just a joke. And they're quite an odd couple. They have affection for each other, these brothers, but one grew up to be a family man for the mafia. Basically, he's like a enforcer / bodyguard for his Don Furioso. And his brother ended up becoming a cop, basically. And kind of a priest, but as we shall see, he's not a very good priest. He's good at almost everything else, but he's a priest only in name. He doesn't really follow the rules that most priests do. And they're chatting, and through their discussion, we kind of see about their conflicts and their differences. Technically, he's not a cop. He's just the Monsignor of the police station, but we'll see that he's got a lot of juice there. Way more than your average priest / Monsignor. From their dialogue, we kind of realize that New York City is a very different place. This is in the future. I like this, though. His apartment is over Jonas Schimmel Knishes. That's a real place in New York City. I've been there. It's like 100 years old. It's kind of cool that he has all these little local touches. We see that New York City's, it's bad. There's just no law and order, barely any. Poverty, crime, everything's on the rise. It looks like America's become a third world country practically. So it's definitely science fiction. But it's just, that's why it says one day in the future. It's, pretty much our world. He stops these thugs from beating up an old guy. And this shows what the New York City's like. These cops are like, what the hell's going on out there? Just some kids beating up an old guy. Forget about it. The cops don't even give a shit. There's just no law, basically, unless you're rich. Joe Staton draws us really nicely, the third worldness of New York City. Just people living in the street in little, hovels and trying to sell stuff. So from that initial dialogue between him and his brother, Alonzo's supposed to stay in that apartment. It's kind of like a safe house. There's just all this... His brother, Charlie, wants him to stay in there. He's like, dude, you can't show your face. There's just too much tension going on right now. And, he doesn't give a shit. He's a tough guy. He's like, I'm not going to stay cooped up in there. Fuck it. I got things to do. But he's not supposed to be up and about. So he goes to visit his Don Furioso. And in this future, the mafia is pretty much done. I mean, I think he's the last Don left. And he barely has any power. He basically hides in his mansion, afraid to go outside. Barely has any money left, barely has any soldiers, So the mafia's been pretty crippled by the police. They've taken out almost everyone. I think they let Don Furioso leave just out of pity, basically. It's not like he's a threat to anyone. So this is a recurring motif. Alonzo's family was murdered, an unsolved murder, years ago. His wife and his 2 kids. And he keeps seeing apparitions of them everywhere he goes. He's obviously not over it. He probably never will be. When he goes back to his apartment, we meet Alice. Alice is actually his brother Charlie's girlfriend. Like I said, he's not a very good priest. And she's bringing him her cat to borrow. She knows he's alone. He might need some companionship. This is one thing Joe Staton isn't that good at, drawing cats. This cat is pretty ridiculous looking. He almost looks like Nort from the Green Lantern Corps. And he's just like, well, fuck, okay, fine. But what we realize from this dialogue is that Alice is a fucking angel. She's a sweetheart and just a really nice, caring person. And she seems to really care about Alonzo. And by proxy, we can tell how much Charlie cares about his brother, too. Because he sends her over there a lot. He's like, hey, go check out my brother. See if he's doing okay. That's the thing about Jerome Charyn, just great characters. This is the kind of book where I just wanted, a prequel or a sequel when it was over. I want to see more of all these characters. And this, I love the setting he set up, this New York City in the near future. Very interesting world he's created. Yeah, the cat's name is Leo. He's like a fucking just beast, this thing. He's a stray cat. We see a little bit more of New York City. Here's the market area. It's very third world. Everyone's got their little stalls. She's really hot, apparently, Alice. I mean, you can tell. She's drawn very cartoony, but she's drawn hot, right? So everyone in this rally knows this. And she constantly gets cat calls. And this one guy, he's like saying something sleazy to her. And he doesn't realize the Monsignor's right there. You know, Alice's boyfriend. And this scene, I do not understand. It's so odd. He wraps the guy up in his robe. And you can hear the guy like, like a muffled sound. And then we never see the guy again. I don't know, did he swallow him up in his cloak forever? It's so weird. I don't know if there was a miscommunication between Joe Staton and him, between the artist, but it's just very odd. But maybe Jerome Charyn just wanted to add some crazy little touch. Who knows? The Monsignor visits the chief of police here. And, yeah, just look at that. That's Joe Staton. I don't think he ever drew like this in his life. Just really good, even though everyone's cartoony, but it's interesting caricature type cartoony, and it's consistent. From this conversation, we realize that, like, he's the power behind the throne. Even though he's the Monsignor of the police station, it's almost like he runs things. Excuse me. Now we're back with Alonzo. He's not going to stay home. Keeps doing errands. Love that panel. It's great drawn. When he gets outside this building, these guys clonk him on the head and put him in a bag and abduct him. But this came out a few years after Sin City began by Frank Miller. And I see a lot of Marv in this guy, just this, in the sense that he's almost like a superhero. Like, he can pretty much kick anyone's ass who comes up against him. He's so fucking formidable. It's ridiculous. He's unstoppable. So he gets the best of these guys who are going to bury him. And then his brother shows up. Great page. I love this little splash. And just a really nice design. And they have a little conversation. Things are definitely getting heated in a relationship because their different lifestyles are coming at odds. He's got to clean up the streets. His brother's a mafia guy. And he kind of chastises him for, like, not hiding in his apartment. We see the Monsignor with his girlfriend Alice, and they seem to really care for each other. They seem to really love each other. Even though this Monsignor, we're finding out, is a little short on morality and ethics. It's kind of corrupt. When the Monsignor goes to visit the mayor, and then we really see what kind of juice he has. Like, the mayor is totally basically his lackey. At this function here, we meet Eloise and Roger and the Abelards. They're brother and sister. They're old and they're rich, and they're kind of like the biggest power in the city because they have so much money. They put the mayor in his office. Everyone knows that, like, you kind of got to suck up to him. So they have a lot of power, but they're very eccentric, very odd people. Eloise seems like the more cutthroat of the siblings. I guess they're half siblings, but it's kind of weird. They never got married to anyone else, and they've lived together their whole lives. So it's very odd. They're definitely weird. We find out that Roger's got some kind of side deal going with the Monsignor. He's been using his wealth to support the Monsignor's like vigilante activities. The vigilante's been hiring all the ex-cops, because there's a lot of ex-cops in this, terrible New York City. They laid off a lot of cops. There's no money to pay them. And he, through his illegal activities, pays them all to be his thugs and goons so he can make even more money. But also, in the process, it does clean up the streets. It does help lower crime, even though what they're doing is kind of criminal. They're shaking down businesses and whatever. And once again, we see in all his relationships, the Monsignor is like the top dog. This guy is definitely alpha. He's a pretty strong character. I don't know, you guys probably know Joe Staton's work. I'm just curious to see if you're as in awe of this as I am. Every page, I'm just like, wow, Joe, why didn't you draw like this for the past 40 years? He'd probably still be working if he did this. I think he kind of stopped getting work because his work was getting too sloppy and cartoony, So the Monsignor and his goons try to abduct Don Furioso. And without even a fight, Alonso just intimidates them into handing the body over to him. And of course, Don Furioso is furious, but he's impotent. He knows the Monsignor's way stronger than him. He can't go up against him. So Alonso goes to visit Alice, and he says, "Did the Monsignor murder my wife?" Wait, let me see if I got that right. Yeah, did my brother kill my wife? There's kind of like this rumor going around about could have been his brother. Once again, he sees an apparition of his dead wife. We see some more scenes of Roger and Eloise, and the way they kiss is a little, odd. Not like brother and sisters kiss. These are all the ex-cops who owe allegiance to Monsignor. He's got a veritable army. I'm so proud of you, Joe Staton. It's weird, it's the style. I just really find the style appealing. So cartoony and detailed, and it fits the story perfectly, too. Alice tells the Monsignor what Alonso asked him. And he says, "That's crazy. I loved his wife and kids. There's no way I would have killed them. Don't you believe me?" And she's having doubts. She realizes he's kind of a corrupt guy. And Alonso gets to where the Don was being held, and his brother's goons are there. And they shoot him. And that's the cliffhanger ending of this episode, of this first chapter. Family Man, Volume 2. Same creative team. Another nice cover. Did I mention the lettering in this is by Ken Bruzenak, a great letterer of American flag and many other things. We have a little dream sequence of Alonso's dead family. Joe Staton does this different kind of shading and style. And Alonso wakes up. How well drawn that is. Can't believe this is Joe Staton. Amazing. And he's in this like weird little prison. The Monsignor basically made his own little private prison. So he doesn't have to deal with habeas corpus or trial and jury trials. Anyone he just thinks is a menace or he doesn't like, he throws in this little private jail he's got in the back of the cop station. It's like a little dungeon. So it's the Don and all of his, associates. He's got still a few guys in his mafia family. So the Monsignor comes to visit him, his brother. And he's basically, keeps to his story. He's like, dude, I'm doing this to protect you. You can't be out there. There's going to be a full-scale war. So what I did is I grabbed all the warriors and threw them in this jail. So there can't be a war. So he's basically doing it for the good of the city. And it makes sense. I mean, they are mafia guys after all. We see that all these businessmen pay tribute, basically, monetary tribute to the Monsignor. That's how he makes a lot of his money. They basically pay him to kill as many of those, little thugs who rob them as he can. Almost like a vigilante army. Eloise tells the Monsignor that her brother Roger wants to see him. And when the Monsignor goes to meet him at their mansion, we meet his nurse, Roger's nurse, maid, and other things, as we shall see. Her name's Dorothea, and keep your eye on her. She's got a lot more depth than you first think. We find out that Roger's like this weird health nut. He's very spry for like an old man, but even a young man. It seems like he's pretty amazing at acrobatics and all kinds of stuff. And Rogers tells him that he has an offer. He says, I want to join your army. I'm tired of, I'm bored of just being a rich guy. I want to be, get into mischief. I want to be a desperado. And Monsignor says, that's probably not going to work out. More scenes of the little private dungeon jail. Back at Roger's place, we realize that Dorothea has a very strong hold over Roger. And we also find out that she does favors for him of the sexual nature, it looks like. We cut away to the mayor's mansion. And Monsignor goes to visit him to plead with him. Well, not to plead with him, but say, dude, you can't stay locked up in your bedroom. The mayor's just such an ineffectual, spineless, loser. He's locked up in his bedroom for his own safety. He's just a coward. And the Monsignor's saying, dude, your city's falling apart. You gotta make an appearance. You gotta show your face. People need you. But he's not listening. While he's in that private prison, he gets a visitor. Alonzo does. And it's Alice. She nobody even knows this private prison, but she obviously has inside information, because she dates the Monsignor. So she comes to visit him. And she says, I'm going to get you out of here. And she slips him some stuff so he can attack this guard, put on his uniform, and he sneaks out of the station. With Alice. So we see that the Monsignor's really upping his, cleaning up the streets campaign. Just buses are going around. Any young teenage hoodlums that are around, they're just rounding them up. Meanwhile, back at the mayor's mansion, we see this shadowy figure on the roof. And he jumps through the skylight. That's a nice little panel. And it's Roger practicing his ninja skills or whatever. And his security guards come, basically the cops come, but he won't press charges because, Roger's rich. And he's harmless, So he says, just send him home. And Roger's crestfallen. He wants to be taken seriously as a mischief maker. So when Alice drops off Alonzo, they kiss. So I don't know if this is something that they previously had some interest in each other, but I don't know. Part of me just thinks that she's finally realizing that maybe I'm with the wrong brother. The Monsignor seems pretty corrupt, And Alonzo's at least a square shooter, even though he's a mafia guy. And the Monsignor finds out. And we realize that, he's really not a good guy at all. He slaps her around. And because she won't reveal where Alonzo's being, his safe house, he has to go somewhere. He orders his 3 thugs to beat it out of her. And this is the woman just he loved. But she betrayed him, and he's a hard case, the Monsignor. So Alonzo's he's totally laying low, sneaking around. There's basically an APB on him. And he goes to Yankee Stadium, and he realizes that Yankee Stadium has been turned into a giant internment camp by his brother. There's all these gangbangers stuck in there. That's where they're putting all those kids that they're rounding up in those buses. They're just going to throw them in Yankee Stadium and let them rot, basically. So the guys are beating the crap out of her. And then she calls for Leo, the cat. And look at this, like a fucking lion or a tiger. He just scratches up all their faces. He's like 3 tough cop guys, and that cat just makes mincemeat out of them. Meanwhile, back at the mayor's place, Eloise pays him a visit, and she coerces him into signing the okay for the Yankee Stadium thing. Because it's totally not really legal. But now it is nice and legal, because the mayor signed it, denoting that Yankee Stadium will be a temporary detention center. So when Alonzo comes to see Alice, he sees her all beat up. He knows it's his brother's handiwork. And he's pissed. We see those 3 cops that beat her up and also have tons of Band-Aids because of Leo's handiwork. And Alonzo beats the shit out of him. And the Monsignor's talking to the captain, like, we got to do something about your brother. I like this scene here, just showing a little character bit stuff. The Monsignor is such a badass that he goes to Yankee Stadium to have this lecture kind of speech to all the inmates. And he just walks through the crowd completely fearless. These are all thugs who he put behind, put in this detention center. But everyone's so intimidated by him. Even his enemies don't dare attack him. He's got this aura about him. So Roger and his nurse, who I can't think of her name, Dorothea, they're part of their mischief, getting into mischief together, is she convinces him, let's find out who killed Alonzo's family. Let's be like detectives. So they're trying to figure it out. Alonzo sees his old friend who runs the grocery store, and he's protecting the remnants of Don's gang. He's got him hiding behind his store. But then the Monsignor comes in. The jig is up. Some nice action stuff. Alonzo breaking through the window. Once again, he sees his dead wife. But then the strangest thing happens. It looks like he's scot-free. And then this net falls on him. And it's Roger. That was one of the things he wanted to do. He's like, oh, I'm going to catch Alonzo. Make everyone impressed with me. And he's like a little boy. He's so happy. He's like, we got him. We caught the big fish. But Dorothea doesn't seem that amused by it all. End of book 2. The finale, book 3. Brother's Keeper. And so Dorothea, we find out there's a really lot more to Dorothea than we thought. I don't know exactly what it is, but she has an agenda. And she talks to Alonzo and talking about his wife. And she decides to free him. She says, Roger, we're letting him go. I'm changing sides. And he's like, what? And he's a little temper tantrum like a little boy. I want to do mischief. I want to do harm. Yeah, so she frees Alonzo because she's got such a pull over Roger. Even though he's her boss, she totally pulls his strings. He's basically totally in love with her. So now the Don and all of his mafia guys are in the private jail. And he takes them all to Yankee Stadium, just throwing them in. Alonzo's walking around on a mission, trying to figure out all this shit. And there's an undercover cop pretending to just be like a street person. And he's calling in. And then he pulls his gun and says, Alonzo, you're under arrest. And Alonzo knocks him out. Not completely unconscious, but just knocks him over. And he's like, hey, aren't you that old cop who used to spank me and my brother when we were bad when we were little kids? You were a good cop. You were one of the good ones. And I think the guy's kind of ashamed of himself. Because now he's just a bounty hunter, basically. He's a vigilante. He's one of those ex-cops who works for the Monsignor. And the other cops show up, and he actually says, run, Alonzo, I'll cover for you. Alonzo seems to have this thing where he seems to get a lot of loyalty out of people. Excuse me. I think because he's such a square G that a lot of people just want to help him out. Which kind of shows you, without just telling you about him, it lets you know that he's a pretty good guy. That people have such a affection for him and want to help him. So this crazy woman bonks him on the head with a baseball bat, Alonzo, and attacks him. He bests her, but she really did a number on his skull. He's really fucked up. And Monsignor goes to have a little last visit with Alice. Well, maybe not the last, but kind of like they're done. So Alonzo wakes up in this nice couple's apartment. And he remembers them from his childhood. He's like, ah, you were that nice lady who made me and my brother cookies. The almond cookies with a cherry on top. And they're nursing him back to health. They obviously think he's a good guy. They want to help him. So back in Yankee Stadium, I like this nice little dream sequence. The way it's drawn. Good job, Joe Staton. So Dorothea goes to visit the captain of the police. And man, Dorothea's just got some mojo. I mean, she's obviously beautiful. And she, whatever, passionate. She uses her feminine wiles. She uses them all the time on guys. But it's beyond that. It's almost like she's got a pussy that can brainwash you. Because after this little dalliance with the captain, he's like her slave. He's willing to do anything she wants. Now we could cut back to the mansion of Roger and Eloise. And we find out that Eloise is the same as Roger. They both work out like every day. They're in amazing shape because of their gymnasium. And we find out a little weirdness of their childhood. He said he never got married because he was in love with her, his half-sister. So back to Dorothea seducing the captain. And she gets him to spill the beans. She says, who killed Alonzo's family? And he says, I did. And look how well Staton draws that expression on his face. It's just really good cartooning. And I guess he was at on the payroll of Heloise. It was Heloise's order. She ordered him to kill Alonzo's family. I like how he just draws here. Dorothea, she's just like an Amazon. She just seemed like this sexy nurse, and now she's just like so strong. She's like Wonder Woman. And her will just seems so strong. So Alonzo sneaks into Yankee Stadium to free his Don and his friends. He basically gets arrested, causes a ruckus, so they take him there. He doesn't have to break in. I misspoke. He just gets arrested and they throw him in. Meanwhile, the Monsignor and the Abelards are celebrating. They're basically the new kings and queens of the city. Now that they got rid of all the mafia guys, they own New York City. They're drinking champagne. Back at Yankee Stadium, and Alonzo says, I'm getting you out of here. The Don's like, fuck that, we're stuck here for life. He doesn't have much hope. Yeah, Joe Staton still can't draw cats very good. I don't know what that is. Looks like that guy from Return of the Jedi with shorter ears. So Alice finds out from Roger, what was behind Eloise's whole plan. And she just wanted to take out Alonzo because she knew that he was the family man of the Don Furiosa family. And taking him down would, weaken the family considerably. See, that's so Joe Staton, but way more detail than normal. So Alice escapes her captivity because the Monsignors had her captive this whole time. And she finds Alonzo through this fence. And he's going to blow Alonzo away. They followed Alice after her escape, and Alice led them right to Alonzo because they had no idea he was in Yankee Stadium. They didn't know where he was. So they're like, thanks, Alice, for leading us right to your boyfriend. And he's going to blow him away right through the fence. But then the Monsignor shows up and kicks the gun out of his hand and slaps him around because he still loves his brother, even though they're like mortal enemies. So Alonzo's all captured. And the mayor and Eloise have a little conversation. And they're basically like, okay, the Monsignor's gotten too big for his britches. We need to consolidate our power. He's getting too strong. We got to take him out. So the Monsignor goes to the police station. And the captain basically says, you shouldn't have slapped me, Charlie, not in front of all those people. And his like second in command conks Charlie in the back of the head. And they throw him in this bag, this body bag. And they're going to bury him out back. They don't even know if he's dead or not. They're just like, yeah, just bury him. He'll be dead either way. So this kind of causes a rift in the whole police force because a lot of the cops and these ex-cop vigilantes, they swore allegiance to the Monsignor. So the captain's going around saying, hey, the Monsignor's dead. You know, we're going back to the way things, like the normal police force. And some of these cops are fighting each other because some of them are still loyal to the Monsignor. But basically the captain gets control. So all the kings of the city are there with Alonzo tied up, gloating. And the captain says he's going to... Oh, I'm sorry, this is Klein. He's the corrupt cop who was on the Don Furioso's payroll for like decades. Oh, I'm sorry, it is the captain. Sorry about that. And Dorothea says, tell him, Captain Tom, how you murdered his wife and children. And he totally admits to it, to Alonzo. And he's going to gouge out Alonzo's eyes. But then Dorothea frees his hands. He goes behind the chair and cuts his bonds. And Alonzo beats the crap out of him. Then he takes him, grabs him by the neck and says, show me where you buried my brother. And they take him there, and he forces him to dig up the hole, the grave. And his brother's still alive. Charlie's still alive. And after all the shit they've been through, look at the smile on his face. He's just, it's so weird, their relationship. The captain tries to run away. But Alonzo stops him. And then he throws him in the body bag and throws him in the grave. He tells the Monsignor, he says, little brother, you'll get rid of your fucking prison camp, understand? Don Furioso goes home and you'll work with the wild boys. You'll train them instead of locking him up in camps. And it's so weird. It's kind of unrealistic. He has this total change of heart. He's just like, don't worry, you're right. I'll do that. I've been wrong all this time. Which rings a little untrue. Then again, maybe he's just lying to his big brother. And as soon as the big brother leaves, he's just going to go back to doing the things he did, the way he did. And Alonzo says, I think I'm going to move out to Arizona. Just disappear again. And Alice is going to go with him. She says, that sounds nice. Then we cut away to the Roger and Eloise's mansion, the gymnasium. And she says, oh, I'm coming up, Roger. And she says, I've always loved you, Raj. And he's like, yeah, but you plotted behind my back. And she says, but I've always loved you. And she jumps over to his perch and he knocks her off. And he says, but I don't love you anymore. I'll marry Dorothea. That's what I'll do. And his sister's dead there on the floor. Probably snapped her neck. What a strange ending. Man, I love all these characters. I want to see more stories about these people. But there you go. Family Man, 1 through 3. And, God, I'm impressed with this artwork. I mean, I know Jerome Charyn's going to deliver a good piece of work, you know. That doesn't surprise me. But Joe Staton pulling this out of his ass after all these decades, top-notch work. I know a lot of people probably wouldn't dig it. It is still pretty, like, pedestrian cartooning, but it's just so nice. I love it. And I wish Joe Staton drew more like this. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did reading it myself. And I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.